Good morning, Tartaria, Australia, and Autodidactic, my little neighbour in crime there. How you
Yeah,
going?
man.
Looking pretty Star Wars today. Now, Campbell's moved down to his dome, which we put up a couple of weekends ago with Joe and Richard. Call out to you guys if you're out there. Thanks for visiting. It was excellent to get his dome up in a day. But his internet connection is still a
Okay.
little bit dodgy.
Yes, I'm
So
back.
I'll just we until we've solved the internet issue, I'll just keep yapping on until
Just
you
keep
come back
talking
from your
from my.
slumbers.
Well, I am in outer space, man. Come I'm on some planet a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely look like Luke Skywalker has ascended onto the farm.
Someone needs to make me a lightsaber.
So you've gone from being in a tent, my buddy, into a dome. So tell us all about it. Give the audience a bit of a update on what the fuck a dome is and
Yeah,
what it's like to live in one.
there is a video on Spiral Up, my Spiral Up channel. You can check it out. It shows us building it. But yeah, it's fiberglass panels. They just bolt together. Adam, the amazing Adam, has lent it to me to live in.
Yeah,
And we
thanks,
put it up.
Adam, you legend.
Yes, Adam's a legend. And yeah, we put it up with your two legendary friends,
Joe and
Jojo
Richard.
and Richard. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It went up in about what, 4 hours, I think. And that was,
Well,
4 or 5,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So it was pretty easy, really, wasn't it? It was pretty good. So I got it up, and I'm impatient because I've been in a tent, and I'm still sort of one-handed. So I've just kind of smoothed the floor out and put a ground sheet in there and taped it all up, and I guess carpet and some. It's really good. It's just a little bit empty, so I need some carpet and some cool furniture and some.
Do a quick pan around. Can you move your little
Maybe
camera? Just so
the camera.
like it's pretty good. These are fiberglass domes, so they basically come in pieces and you can just kind of screw them together. Got
Got my
inbuilt windows,
the doors right
doors,
behind me.
yep, and little wardrobe spaces.
Chair there, some bits.
And it's huge. Hey, it's like 6 meters diameter, is that right? Ah, he's frozen again. Yeah, it's about 6 meters diameter. It's pretty tall, like 3 meters at least, maybe even taller. And so a fantastic, like quick and easy shelter. Like if anyone's looking for a solution to getting out of the cities, this is a good one. And I think the dome industry got kind of like peaked before it should have. Like it sort of came in and then we lost it, and the tiny homes got really big, and then of course COVID got really big, and now lots of people are looking to move off the grid. But tiny homes have become like fucking little expensive boxes on wheels. You basically take out a mortgage to build one these days. But I don't know how much of these things retail for.
We're looking into it. I think it's around the sort of 12 US.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that's with freight and anything, but I'm pretty sure you could get into one for like 20 grand in Australia.
Yeah.
Uh, but we're going to look into that. So if anyone's interested, let us know because Adam was importing these, and he stopped just before the whole tiny house thing came on. But yeah, like Kelly was saying, I saw one video and this guy had a tiny house, but he got it built for him, 130 grand.
Yep. I know. I know. They're so expensive. They're crazy expensive. It's like a scam. That's like a scam, Campbell.
Well, it is, you see, because this is part of the, 15-minute city. You'll own nothing and enjoy it. It's like they bring out these tiny homes as something sort of fun and niche, and maybe, if you want a small place by yourself, and now they're pushing it out as a concept, that's expensive. It's like a luxury, right? So now it's the thing to do is to live in a tiny house with nothing, right? And
Yep.
of course, with a tiny house, you don't need to own the land. So it is, I think it's like a natural movement that's been stolen, right? And
Yep.
inverted. It's like everything.
Yeah. I mean, drum roll. That sort of introduces us, I think, to the working title of this podcast, which is Scanned and Scammed.
And
Because I
yeah,
like
man.
we've been missing having our little regular chats, and big apologies. Like we've just finished building a homeschooling classroom, and it's really, really cute. And we've just obviously Campbell's got his dome up, so he's been like busy on that and just farm life, man. So
You can tell we've both got farm hair.
yeah, farm hair, farm. Yeah, we do. I know. Look at us. We're terrible. So yeah, I mean, like I guess summer's fast approaching out here, so we are trying to get some of the outside projects done before we are blasted by this intense humid heat that hits the northern rivers. So yeah, we've just been a bit slack with getting around to the podcast, but and I think obviously we're in the same space. So a lot of our podcasts happen like at 11 o'clock at night when we're just chatting at the end of the day. We should just fucking press record.
Yeah, we keep forgetting to record them.
Except it'll be really dark and you won't see anything. But we've had some
Right.
good conversations. But I hope everyone's going well out there in the land of our little community
Yes.
and around the world.
Yes, and I mean, of course, there's a lot of big changes, and we were in where were we? Woolworths, I think, the other day, going through the self checkout thing. You know, like
It was
being
Coles.
being paid, or was it Coles? Was it? And Kelly noticed there was cameras in all of the little self checkout things, recording us, and of course, she had to say something, and all the staff were just like, "Ooh, it's just a camera. Yeah, it's recording you." Like they just did not get it at all, did they?
Yeah. It's just like it's just so fucking annoying. Like, so not only were we literally scanned at the checkout and a video just like without any permission, just like recording us the whole time, which all just adds to this smart city rollout. And I don't know overseas what your situation is, but this is just another uncivilized, frustrating element of this realm at the moment. They've taken away all the plastic bags and replaced it with paper bags. After a couple of years ago, they took away all the paper bags and replaced them with plastic bags. So now we're packing our groceries in these little square paper bags, which looks like nice and homesteady. But literally within like, 1 second of using them, the bottom fell out of the paper bag, of
As you were
course.
packing it just ripped
Yeah,
down
as I
the
was packing
side.
it, and I'm thinking, if it's fucking going to rain outside, like these things are going to be absolute useless. But that's not the thing that like
No, what's the
gripes
thing?
me.
Tell
The
them.
thing is that like here I am with my paper bag trying to save the world and climate change and cutting the trees down for the paper. But every single bloody thing I put in that paper bag is wrapped in plastic. Like everything from that supermarket is full of plastic. So that's sort of annoying. I don't even, what's the word for it? That's sort of annoying. It's just like a little, like, it's like, that sort of like blackboard noise. I'm just like our everyday life in this realm at the moment. So that was the title of the show, Scanned and Scammed. And I think we can pass that into a much broader conversation of what's happening in this realm. Cambell, scanned and scammed. What's
Mm.
happening in this world right now? Where are we at?
It's just crazy. I mean, one big thing we're all seeing is the cost and the rise of living, right? Everything.
Yeah,
Petrol, food, mortgages, rent, and there's no basis for it.
yeah,
It's literally just price gouging. People are just putting up their prices. Because I mean, if you look at the stats of how much money these companies have made in the last 2 years with all this shortages and everything, they've all triple, quadrupled their profits. So
yeah,
there was no shortage. They were just putting the prices up and just playing this game, and
yeah,
we don't have to pay it, right? Which is, you know, bad, sure, but I mean, good, right? Because hopefully people will make decisions to do different things and start things like growing their own food or raising their own food and sharing it around and getting co-ops going where, different people produce different things and we can get away from this system, where we put things back at their proper value. And that, apart from bloody tax, oh my God, there's a lot of talk about tax at the moment. And, in Australia, we've got a GST, which means every time you purchase something, you pay, I think it's 11% at the moment, something like that.
Mm.
But, so if I buy something at the shop, I pay 11%. That money gets used then to pay the employees. They pay another 11%. The employee goes and spends it, pays another 11%, and this cycle. So, I mean,
yeah,
when you think about it, by the time it gets through 10 transactions,
yeah,
it's worth 10% less than the dollar it originally was.
yeah. Yep. Yep. Yes and yes and yes and yes, and that's all
So,
around the world. It's
you know,
like,
it's just time that we. I mean, I see this as sort of in our face, so people wake up, right? Like we've got to notice it, then we've got to do something about it. In America, a lot of people just aren't paying tax. The revenue, I think it's down like almost 50% or something.
yeah,
That's
but
why
in
they're literally
Australia,
going around. Did you
I
see when
mean,
they were
what
like
would happen
drug
here?
dealers?
That suspend your car license. That's the default of the government on any issue. You don't pay a fine. You don't do what you're told. They immediately suspend your car license. This is fucked.
Yep.
Like, and then that makes it you can't get third party, and you're basically driving around risking, bankruptcy if you hit anything. So, like, it's really dodgy on that level. But look, I don't want to get into my grumbles and gurgles about
No.
the state of, because you know where I go with that. I get all freaking cynical, and then I'm just like, fuck this whole thing. But I tell you one of the potentially greatest scabs playing on our minds at the moment, which is just something that we just find like mind blowing, is that Campbell and I have started, and we've been on this since Tartaria in Melbourne, the carnivore diet. Now, this is a fascinating conversation, Campbell, and it really ties in so beautifully to our work with Tartaria, which is this, and I'll just lay out the concept here and we'll have a chat. So, this diet is basically you only eat meat and animal products. And of course, as we've gone through all this deprogramming and then really agonizing over the years, decades even, about what this whole inverted commas ascension process is, or shift is, or reset is, or split is, whatever terminology we're throwing into it, like that, the correct diet to be on is a vegetarian diet where you are basically not accumulating any karma with the process of your food. Now, karma is an interesting concept. Another thing that we could deep dive on, and is karma just a tool to subdue us? Is I'm just talking about karma, or is it something that came as a oppressive energetic to just enslave us even further and make sure that we feel very guilty all the time, or do what we appear to be the right thing all the time? Like, karma is an interesting conversation. But so the Ascension diet was always about reducing your karmic imprint, which is like eating lighter food. But then Campbell and I stumbled upon this concept of the carnivore diet. Now, Campbell was a vegetarian for fucking ever, and I have really been a vegetarian on and off my whole life, and only for me, never because I was particularly fond of greens and vegetables, but
Yeah,
I
it was
just
ethical.
couldn't
Yeah.
get the head
Didn't
around the
exist a
killing of
hundred years
these
ago,
fucking
or
gorgeous little creatures. And
yeah,
what a
yeah,
cruel fucking joke that is, anyway. That
yeah,
that
yeah. I mean, it's just made us think in different ways and look at it. I mean, the first thing is, I mean, who's telling us to eat? All these vegetables and things, right? It's the system. So, I mean, that's got to be the first thing that, after everything we've learned, if it's connected to the system, there's an agenda behind it, right? Then next to that, we know that most of the plants we eat probably 50 years ago, right? They're all genetically, but also just hybridized and all this kind of stuff. And then we found out about, oh gosh, now I've forgotten the word. What are they called?
oxalate.
Oxalates, which are in all in all plant foods, is these oxalates, and they're basically little crystals that don't break down in the body, and they become, they're sharp, right? And this is what leaky gut is. It's literally tearing your gut up. It causes all the joint inflammation. It gets in your joints and gives you, inflammation, causes mind fog, all these different things. Diet came about.
Depression,
Yeah,
mental
yeah,
health. Yeah, mental health issues. Basically, 90% of the health or diseases or disorders that we have been dealing with have come from the build-up, apparently, of these oxalates, which are a natural toxin that the plants put out that actually like as a defensive mechanism.
yeah.
So, like, the interesting part of this, Campbell, is we then started to look at, well, oh my God, holy hell, like, what if this is possibly accurate? Like, if this is true, it means that we have been indoctrinated to eat vegetables, like plant-based food, so grains, seeds, vegetables, herbs, um, basically, if we look at it from a Tartarian perspective, and there's so many questions about the food chain and if they even ate it all. There's no evidence of old gardens. There's no evidence of food growing or food factories or kitchens or even bathrooms. And so a lot of people assume that Tartarians were, in some essence, a different frequency band and were consuming, much lighter things like ether, like breatharianism, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we started to say, well, when did this whole push for vegetables and growing your food come into being? And that was an interesting conversation,
Yeah.
hey?
Yeah. Well, the big push for home gardens, like home veggie gardens, actually in World War Two.
World War II.
During the
Yep.
war. Yeah. So in World War Two, yeah, they got everyone to plant a vegetable garden, and because of lack, they're all going to starve. War, no food.
Yeah.
And that was a really big push. And then that sort of went into the 50s, and everything was meat, three veg. That's sort of when
Yep.
that came in, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's interesting because when you feed a toddler, they normally push away the vegetables, don't they? And they'll
Yeah, you
eat
got to really fight them to eat those vegetables.
it's a big theme, especially during the 70s and 80s and probably 60s is really.
Yep. Yeah, really big theme, like push the vegetables. So that theme has carried on to almost a climatic moment today where we're looking at, this whole plant-based vegan push to save the environment, save the climate change, save the world. But yeah, they really pushed this energetic to this climatic moment today where they're really saying, if you've woken up to the fact that this planet's dying and you've got to play your part, you've got to move towards the the plant-based diet, which is interesting because that plant-based diet is becoming more and more literally created in a factory plant.
And this is Wikipedia for Beyond Meat. Tells you a bit about the company, but down here under finance, we see over the years 2013 to 2016, the company received venture funding from Great Point Ventures, Kleiner Perkins, Obvious Corporation, Bill Gates, Bizstone, and the Humane Society. So Bill Gates is tied up in Beyond Burger. He's funding it. Bill Gates is also the biggest private owner of farmland in the United States. So he is literally controlling the food chain. So this is something that we need to consider with this, in inverted commas, plant-based diet, because as we can see, what he's done is he's turned it into a plant, as in a factory food. And he is now controlling all the farmland. So he can control what is grown. Synthetic meat investor Bill Gates calls for rich countries to shift entirely to synthetic meat. Okay, so Billy Boy is behind this big push. He's one of the main players. Something to consider.
So then we started to look at, what does this fucking mean, man? So it's a fascinating concept when we look at from a Tartarian perspective about the food issue, because there's definitely a mystery about the food. And then we look at today with the reset and then the decline into sort of like this lower frequency band. And as we've declined into this lower frequency band, our food, or we have been told from the truth-seeking ascension spiritual path, that our food descended into eating meat, which was like karmically very bad, and that we could free ourselves from this by starting to replace all the meat produce with plants that we grow. But Cambell, if we look at the natural order of this, plants are medicine. Plants are our medicine. Plants are designed for medicine. So if we have been forced or programmed, to consume a lot of these medicines, so if we replace the word plants with medicines and forced to consume medicines, then what happens? We get a toxic overload of these medicines, and they put us into issues like mental health disorders, brain fog, confusion, inflammation, a massive fucking one that causes so many issues. And testimony, Mr. Autodidactic, I've had the biggest issues with my joints and wrists and fingers in the morning. I've had issues with my shoulders and my feet. And since we started this diet, all of that has cleared up. My inflammation has gone. It's gone. And but I have spent 2 years at like osteos and chiros, trying to like manipulate and trying to figure out what this inflammation is. And for me personally, I think it was the almond milk that I was consuming instead of milk
Yeah.
in my tea.
In your tea 25 times a day.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of these thoughts, you know, we've talked a lot about food, but we haven't really talked about carnivore, right? About this sort of aspect of it. And it's an interesting conversation because one, we can see that, you know, vegetables are being pushed, right?
Yep.
Up to obviously veganism, and obviously
Yep.
veganism is the end of the agenda, and that's sort of a different story. But
And they started pushing it by making it patriotic, making it a patriotic act during the
yeah, to
war.
the earth and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, all the crazy people, you know, running around now yelling about, you know, climate change and that are all vegans. So it's
Yep.
definitely part of that agenda. But the other thing is we talk a lot about, you know, the dumbing down of society, but
Yep.
you don't hear that much about the weakening, I guess, right? The people are getting physically weaker. They're
Yep.
not as big, they're not as strong, they don't have as much stamina and energy. I mean, you know, and we talk about it all the time, right? It's almost like a catchphrase, like, oh, back in the old days, you know, like, oh, Dad,
Yep.
I used to walk through the snow to school and all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
They were just tougher.
And on top of them being tougher, they literally have like criminalized almost the meat industry. Like they're blaming the meat industry for climate change. They're trying to like eradicate people's options around eating meat.
Yes. So they've declined, you know, they've told us not to eat meat, but next to that is the fat thing, right?
Mm.
Taken fat right out of the diet, and fat is essential, right? It's just, you need
Yep.
it for your brain especially. But see, the thing about the carnivore diet is when we eat sugars, and that's also carbohydrates, so just complex sugars, our
Yep.
body's running out of sugar, energy it's breaking down, and so it never breaks down the fat. That's why people get fat, because they're building up their reserves. When you go on carnivore and get off the sugar, your body has no sugar reserves, right? So it starts eating
Yep.
your fat. So you'll
Yep.
naturally start losing weight and putting on muscle. So it's interesting. But yeah, I was looking, you know, you can't buy meat with any fat on it.
No.
Everything lean and lean and lean. And that's the other thing is, even if you're eating meat, you're not getting the fats and, you know, cooking in lard and all this kind of stuff. And again, everyone will say, oh, my grandmother used to do that.
Yep.
And, you know, seriously, think about your grandparents. Were they obese? Were they half dead at 60 with joint pain? I doubt it. They were probably running around, right, you know, doing all their stuff. And there's a reason. And so when you think about it, we can put the decline of health, obviously health, you know, and physical fitness next to the decline of meat and fat consumption. It's just, and I know it's a tough
100%.
topic, you know, and it's tough, you know, it's tough for me and Kelly. Like we said, we've both been vegos most of our lives because we love animals. But I guess to put next to that as well is there's a lot less destruction of habitat and death of animals through the meat industry. There just is. If you don't believe me, do your research.
Yep. Yep.
And also like shoes, plastic shoes compared to leather shoes. Obviously, vegans won't wear leather shoes, right? Most of them. But to make a leather shoe, you're doing a lot less destruction to habitat and to animals than if you're having to go and mine all these things to make plastic. You're setting up factories everywhere. You're putting out all this pollution, much more harmful. So we've also been programmed to think that there's less harm on the environment if we eat fruit and vegetables, but it's not true.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, like, what's sort of like a mind blowing on this concept? Why are we sharing our personal little diet here right now? But what's mind blowing about it is imagine like everything else we take for granted in this realm is a program. Like it's a program. Like there's nothing that escapes that definition. And like imagine if this was like one of the most insipid programs that they've made. If they knew that us eating vegetables and leafy greens and seeds and grains and nuts and herbs would over time accumulate to a toxic overload that would weaken the human system, weaken the mental clarity, weaken our ability to be genius minds, and do it in a way that we're just indoctrinated to think that that is the correct pathway. Now, it makes total sense to me that if we're sitting in a situation like this, plants are medicine. That's why all the way through history, we can definitely say plants were used to make tinctures to heal. Plants were always used in our indigenous cultures, in our shamanic cultures, always within the cultures that we're aware of, to make medicine. Now, if plants were just were gifted to us as medicine, then it would make sense to me that animals, mainly like red meat animals, like a cow, is so much closer biologically and physically to a human body's needs. You know, like eating the fat content, eating the meat content, all the nutrients and minerals and vitamins we essentially need comes from the consumption of, say, a steak, right? A fatty steak, and cooking then in the tallow and the lard of that animal, and then making bone broths out of the bones, and then the organs of that meat of the animal is loaded with amazing stuff for us. Out of one cow, you are basically eating, for the human biology, a superfood. And yet we have been taught that superfoods are basically like toxic fucking plant bombs, like spinach, kale, nuts, nut milks, berries. All of these are like concoctions of these superfoods that people have been putting in abundance into their systems. Now imagine if that was like basically a huge, slow, toxic overload of the system. You know, so you may feel amazing at first because you've given up sugars and carbs, which is obviously what all these sorts of diets end up telling you to do at the beginning. So you feel great, you've lost some weight. We've lost some weight in this first couple of weeks. It definitely kicks the weight thing. But at the same time, we're like looking at these superfoods as being basically like a drug almost, to like it's like giving us a slow burn medicine that's going to over time decline, because the majority of people on these vegetarian, vegan, superfood diets end up very weak in their physical system, very anemic.
And it's a look, right? The vegetarian look isn't big and buff, is it? It's
No.
skinny.
Yeah.
It's like, we know this.
And quite feminine, skinny and feminine.
Well, especially now, right? All this, fake meat, it's just full of estrogen, right? From soybeans and stuff. So, I mean, that's, there's a big agenda there, definitely. See, with oxalates, cows, and ruminants have more than one stomach, so they can get rid of these oxalates.
Oh, yes, that's the other thing. Yes.
Yeah, and so what we find with all traditional plant medicines is they're all go through a process, right? They're either extracted, their essences, their tinctures, their whatever, fermented foods, we know are
exactly.
really good for it. So
yes.
all these processes were created to take oxalates out, to basically, act like, a bit of a stomach with acids and things, and break them out. So, this is the thing, like, and we have these called plant medicine. So maybe that's what plants are, is they're supposed to be their medicines and herbs for taste and for health. So
yeah, he's absolutely right. Like the animals can ferment the plants. We don't have those stomachs to ferment the plants. And we also don't have the teeth of a lion to like bite through raw meat. We're somewhere in between those two. So, like for me at this point, a steak is basically a superfood. The fat content of that steak, like 50% of what we should be eating should be fat, which, in Australia, it's actually like basically a cultural rule not to have fat on the meat. They create the leanest meats possible. Everything is fat free. And like it's just basically designed to remove. Now, fat is the building block of the mind. Fat is the building block of your mind, which means if you want a high functioning, clear, like focused mental state, you need to be giving that brain of yours, that big, beautiful brain, lots of fat.
Yeah. And all the, they brought in seed oils for cooking. So everyone's cooking in seed oils. And that, well, I remember back in the 80s or 90s, I heard that if you heat most of that oil, they'll tell you it goes carcinogenic, right? this is the thing, we all think that if it's plant-based it's good, but you know, how many people actually look into these products? And you know, with the fat thing and everything to do with meat is, so I used to eat the whole animal, brains and livers and all the organs, but now they waste most of it, right? Because you can only eat the, you know, the nice lean cuts and all this kind of crap. um so yeah, like it's a complete flip, and like we said, this is really what sort of made us start thinking about this, you know, deeply. Is it's, is this the biggest scam, right? Like, it's promoted to us. All this stuff is promoted to us from the World Health Organization, from our doctors, from the system, from big pharma. It's all the same message, and it's the same message as you know, climate change, right?
Yep.
It's all
Yep.
the same message. So you've got, you know, we've got to really look at that and go, hang on, what are we going to do? Like, believe that, you know, they've done everything in the last 3 years and all the government and tax stuff, but on health that they're looking after us? Come on,
I
you
know.
know.
Yep. So essentially, have we been scammed around the food? And like I would say 100% almost of the human race is basically who are on this sort of journey, like basically completely confused as fuck about what to eat. Like no one bloody well knows if we should be eating almonds or coconut or milk or dairy or freaking spinach or no one knows. No, everyone is so confused because, and if we're all confused about what to eat, then for sure there's an agenda behind that. And it doesn't have to be like, let's just take out all the obvious stuff, like the processed food, you know, all that stuff. Just take it out, take it out, take it out, and like what you're left with, because we know for sure that they have literally poisoned the food chain. That is a
Yeah,
given fact. That is my work. I know this back to front. They have poisoned the food chain. So if you take away all the processed food, then you're left with the meat and the fruit and the vegetables. And if you then look at the vegetables and fruit and the grains, like they not only have been there's 1,800 agricultural poisons that they use in Australia every single day on your food chain. 1,800. Of that number, 800 are banned all around the world, the rest of the world, because they are so poisonous and they accumulate in very toxic diseases down the line. So these are like little drip fed poisons, you know, there's never enough to like consider, you know, one carrot poisonous. But then if you eat carrots for your whole life from Woolworths, you're building up a toxic, you know, build up in your system that will accumulate with your body breaking down. Now, if we add the concept that all plants and all grown food has a toxic quantity in it called oxalates, and that builds up alongside the toxins of the agricultural poisons, then you're literally looking at the slowest but most powerful time bomb ticking away in the human race. And if we like look around at our friends and families, those who have yet to like wake up to what's happening on this realm, wouldn't it make sense that the reason is the fucking poison that they've been consuming through the food and water for their entire lives, and the lives of their parents, and now the lives of their children? Like it's, you know, and you know, in those books 1984 and Brave New World, it was always about like, you know, poisonous food. All those dystopian movies end on either being fed back human meat as the food to yourselves, or the food being poisoned or drugged, always in that sort of line of thinking. Food is a massive programmed issue on this realm. And it's so interesting that Tartaria, one of the biggest questions we all have is, what was the food? Did they eat? Did they need to eat? Like, where's the evidence of food in the Tartarian work? So, yeah, I mean, it's a really profound shift in our paradigm, Campbell.
yeah, yeah. And I'll just mention too, like the way that it came about was, it's an elimination diet. It wasn't dudes sitting around going, we just want to eat barbecues every day. It was people going through, you know, who had whatever, like mental issues,
Yeah,
weight issues, health
yeah,
issues, and eliminating foods. Just
yeah,
going through the process of, okay, this isn't good for me, and taking it out. And some people ended up at just meat. And this
yeah,
is the thing, you know, carnivore diet can include dairy and all meats and fish, but some people, all they eat is beef. That's
yeah.
it.
Steak.
Because, yeah, yeah, because, and the reason, one of the reasons I think is meat is now the least. You know, like Kelly said,
Yeah,
1,800 chemicals sprayed on the plants. Meat is actually the least
it is true.
messed with food. Yeah, it's the
Hmm.
cleanest we've got left, right?
Yeah,
That's why they're trying to bring in the jabby jab to the cattle. So,
yeah,
but this is, yeah, it's just a big, you know, change in perception, and a good question to think about. You know, have we been duped again? Is this the sort of ultimate? Because, you know, what would these people want? Like, they wouldn't want a strong thinking populist who could fight back, right? They want weak people who are weak minded.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, go check out TikTok if you don't think, you know, that this isn't happening at the moment. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's true, it's true, it's true. So, like, anyone out there in our audience who suffer from any sort of like any sort of depression, whether it be big or mild, feel like they're waking up in a brain fog, have any inflammation issues whatsoever on
Inflammation,
any part of the body, have digestive issues, like the, we've always blamed
leaky
leaky gut
gut
on
noise. Yeah, yeah.
glyphosates, but actually, like, the oxalates create the actual problem of little shards of essentially glass
Mm,
tearing out your digestive system.
yep.
Um, and the meat industry, like, and it just goes to show, like, from this perspective, the best, most ideal situation would be that you're on your own land, you have claimed that sovereignty, and you are raising your own meat, so that meat is like completely organic, has completely had a beautiful life, and you've loved and cared and been on the whole like entire journey with those animals. And then that should be basically all you need to eat in
Mm,
this world, like
yeah.
salt, water, and steak, essentially, or eggs. We have a lot of eggs from our own chickens. We eat chicken, anything animal based.
Mm.
Cheeses, fine. Dairy, fine. Milk, question mark. Cream, I've been putting in my teas. And yeah, I mean, essentially, we've been on it now for what, 4 weeks, Campbell? Has it been 4 weeks?
I think this is the fourth week. Yeah, this week. Yeah.
I've lost 6 kilos. I don't know, you haven't really weighed yourself to know.
No,
My
I weighed myself last week, so I can weigh myself again sometime.
yeah, but essentially, very
I don't want to
naturally,
lose
because
weight.
I was always like, because I've always been a water faster, and it served me really amazing this lifetime. And every 2 years, I end up doing another one and resetting my system, and it's been really great. But being on a farm and having so much to do with a family, water fasting doesn't really work. I can't take the 3 or 4 weeks off just to turn into a little weak, you know, you know, being.
Yeah.
Um, it's much better for me to find a diet where I'm losing weight, my muscle is like building, and I don't lose my energy or strength and can keep going on my pathway. Like, it's
Mm,
definitely one that I'm very committed to staying with as a lifestyle change, and one that you and I can observe for a couple of months and really get to see the
mm.
impact for real or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, yeah, we're using ourselves as the test dummies, the crash test dummies. But another thing I thought about when we were, you know, thinking about the ethical, spiritual sort of side of this is, you know, all the native peoples of the world,
Yep.
they're all pretty much carnivores. You know, if they eat vegetables, it'll be very few. Mostly it's for medicine.
Yeah, it's true. The tribal native energetic across the realm, for as long as we can tell, have been meat-based um eaters, and here and there will turn to the plants for a little boost of something. Like, I know that if I wake up and I am thinking about or craving something like broccoli, and I want that broccoli, like I'm thinking about it, then I know that my body wants to use it as medicine. I know to go to that broccoli and eat it because there's something in it that's going to be specific to what my body's wanting in that moment. And that's how I now feel we should be using the grown food chain. So, fucking interesting concept, everyone. Like, how fascinating. Like, we actually getting down. So I got mind blown by Jay Dreamer's excellent discussion on seafood, so, which is essentially proving or evidencing that the seafood, the crabs, the lobsters, the shellfish, the prawns, all those things, are essentially like bugs. bugs and spiders that we see walking on the land, which ended up in the ocean, growing a bit bigger because of the oxygen in the water. And essentially, eating a lobster is like eating a spider. Eating a prawn is like eating a giant flea. Eating a shellfish is like eating those little those roly-poly bugs.
Yeah.
And the meat on both sides is white with like a weird like gooiness. Like that is essentially, I truly think he's right on the topic of seafood. He didn't
Yeah.
talk about fish. So essentially, yeah, I mean, animal products, fish, eggs, chicken, and any sort of meat is sort of where our experiment's now lying. And then how would you tie this in to Tartaria, Campbell? Like, how would you tie this all into our understanding of how history has associated food? Like, if we went through the art, which we did look at the art from the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century, we were looking for where was the food in the art, you know? We don't have photographs, but what were they painting? And really, up until sort of the 17th century, they weren't painting food. They were, however, painting massive, like city scenes, huge, amazing temples and structures and villages and castles. Yep.
No markets that we can
No,
see.
yep. No
Yeah.
chickens.
No, and
No.
the thing is, like, food is like they've made food social, right? And this is a kind of an aspect we haven't really looked at is food's a social thing, right? Someone gets
Yep.
married, you have food. It's Christmas, you have food. People are coming over, you have food. So there's this big,
Yep.
you know, we clearly eat too much. As a side note, most carnivores only eat once or twice a day.
Yep.
And you do let less out the back door, shall we say.
So much more. Like your poos are
Like,
like this. They're
there's
tiny
plenty.
because your body's using it all. That's it. That's a good side note. Like you literally poo a tiny amount comparatively to a normal diet. And that's really interesting to me. And it's very productive for our long drop to be on the carnivore diet. We'll probably get an extra 12 months out of the long drop thanks to carnivore diet.
Yeah. But so that's maybe why we don't see a lot of food in Tartaria and a lot of stuff is because it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't part of their life. They just, eat because they needed energy, and then they had enough energy to go all day, and they weren't having these big banquets and all this crap because if they were so smart and they were building these amazing cities and that, pretty sure they would have known that gluttony and also eating the wrong.
Yeah, that's true actually, gluttony. Oh, I don't want to interrupt him. Everyone take a moment to digest this excellent thought.
I am going to fix. I'm going to get my satellite and put it on the top of my dome. I think it's.
Yeah, you got
Everyone
to take
email
gluttony.
Elon Musk and tell him to fix my internet.
Fix the
Yeah,
balloons.
but I was just saying, yeah, gluttony. That they knew it was bad for them, so food
Yeah.
wasn't a big part. Food is kind of enslaving, right? I mean, look what it's doing to people. We've got an obesity epidemic. We've got people starving at the other end of it. We've got like we keep saying, no one knows what to eat. And the other thing
Yeah.
is,
We're so confused.
all other animals have a small diet, right?
Yep.
It's not very varied. Like birds will eat, depending on the bird, they'll eat seeds, right, as their diet, or they'll eat insects, but they won't eat seeds and insects. Where we have been taught that we should eat, all these different types of vegetables, fruits, meats, everything, nuts, seeds, we just everything, right? But I mean, when you look at the whole picture, that doesn't really fit, does it? I think maybe our food must be a lot, more, more.
All right. This is good. This is good because we have deep dived a lot in our live shows on the situation with the toilets and where were all the toilets. But now, like, we've taken on this diet synchronistically, and we're watching our need to go to the toilet be very, very minimal. Like you'll poo maybe once or twice, once a day or once every 2 days. What comes out of you is extremely tiny, and it's because your body's now gone. We have made the transition now where we're not reliant on any other food source but the meat and the fat, and our body's utilizing all of it, and in doing that, dropping all the weight. So it's so interesting with the right food chain that our need for toilets has become completely minimal. So this family here there's four of us here. Like we literally will be on one long drop, which is just sorry, give the ins and outs here, but 3 meters deep. And that one long drop now with this diet for this family will last like so much longer because of our, so going back to Tartaria and where are all the toilets. Now, if they weren't consuming meat, and really there's very little evidence of meat being consumed in the artwork up until the last 200 years, do you see any sort of concept of like farming like cattle and chickens and poultry in the paintings? You don't see, you know, chickens and ducks like meandering through the marketplace. You don't even see a marketplace in these
No,
paintings. You know, you see some with fruit and flowers, but they almost look decorative. And and so you like got to say, like, well, if they were on a different frequency band than us, which I think is accurate, because I think each reset, it's like tweaking the frequency, like tweaking
yeah,
the frequency that's held within this electric magnetic firmament that we look at. If they're
mm,
tweaking that each time, then every time they tweak it, the food becomes an experiment. And I believe that they really experiment with how they what they're going to program us to eat and consume. And remember, with the World Trade Fairs, you know, like so almost 100% of the food that was given to the population was introduced at the World Trade Fairs. Like
yeah,
the, you know, the all the weird processed stuff, whatever, it was all kind of introduced. And then the war backed that up by you got rations, and those rations were specific foods that they decided were very important to the diet, and that became so with the reset, then the World Trade Fairs, and then the wars, and this happened systematically over the whole realm, really. Our concept of what was important to eat with the diet was fine-tuned. And then we got things like the Kellogg's pyramid, which, you know, put like this pyramid about how much you should eat, how many things of the grains, of the dairy and the meat every day. And it's just like, so you can so see how our concept of eating and food and health have been manipulated and controlled and refined and introduced, and then getting down to this, you know, where we sit today, which is a complete confusion. And no one really knows what to do about anything to do with food. And really, you can just like keep experimenting and trying your best. But as far as like looking at the toilet issue, if they weren't actually consuming meat, they never even thought about consuming plants unless it was medicinal. And they were actually eating it or consuming, or wrong word, maybe feeding off a different source. And, you know, lots of people have obviously looked at that being the ether itself, like the
mm,
air itself, you know, the living waters, even. Like if that was the food concept, it becomes then, you know, what would you have to waste? What would you have to what need would you have for a toilet at that point? If you were consuming a lighter, higher frequency, would you even need to poo? And like we can see right now that just by eating the right food that matches our biology, meaning like essentially a steak, like our need to go to the toilet has like reduced dramatically. And
yeah,
that's been a surprise to me. Yeah.
yeah. It's just completely flipped everything. You know, with the Kellogg's, literally the Kellogg's pyramid was upside down. Now they
Mm,
say that the least thing is fat, and then meat. You
yeah.
know, and then lots of fruit and veggies, all this kind of stuff. So you know, it's an interesting question, and you know, native. You know, we've all been brought up, you know, with fluffy animals. You know, in all the cartoons, right? Cute animals everywhere. And so and so we've been taught, you know, I don't know, to love them, right?
Yes,
We see, we
that's
do love
true.
them, but we haven't been, and we've also been taught to be scared of death, right? We don't know about what death is, but you go and talk to a person in a native tribe, and that they've been taught something completely different. They've been taught the life cycle, you know, that every death is also a rebirth. They respect their
Yep.
animals, and they see it as that animal gifting them some life force, and so they see themselves as part of the cycle, I think, where we've been cut from that. And we kind of, you know, a lot of people think they're sort of above that. And, you know, this whole we're above animals. And, you know, I'm not saying we're animals, but we're part of the cycle. I believe we're from this realm.
Oh, do I interrupt him or is he going to come back in 1 second? But he's right. That's a really good point. Like they really did bring out Disney when the wars like were off and the vegetables were pushed. They brought back Disney, and Disney was just like inundating like how beautiful and cute and cuddly animals were. really adding to this concept of the horror we feel as good, hearty human beings at having to kill for our food. Now, I I've struggled with this my whole life. Campbell has as well, because we fucking love animals and we really get an emotional relationship with animals. In fact, one of my big things, Campbell, is that I consistently dream about beautiful giant animals kissing me on the cheek. Like the amount of amazing dreams I've had waking up to something kissing my cheek, and it's always in the form of an animal. Now that's just a really odd little, a gorgeous quality of my sleeping patterns that I feel I would never give up in a million years, and I feel bad for people who don't dream. But, for me, like I've had a real struggle with the joke, the cruel paradox that comes with having to kill an animal for our food. But I also am a farmer and have been around farmers for the last 20 years, understand how beautifully respectful and honoring they are with their animals, how much they love them. The relationship of actually like seeing them through their lifetimes the best way we can. And then our ignorance around death. Like we don't have a true understanding of what is death. So we judge the idea of taking an animal's life for food. So it's been like a complicated process to get through. So you add Disney, add the wars, add the World Trade Fair, add the resets, add the superfoods, add climate change, add the industrial farm, add all of that together, and it's resulted in a total and utter like move away from what appears right now, evidencing our own life, the accurate, correct, and highly functioning food to be putting into our bodies, and like really homing us into the complete opposite, completely the other spectrum, which is essentially slowly killing everyone.
Yeah, and they're doing it to animals as well at the moment. All the carnivore, the cats and dogs, they're feeding them grains. And I was
Oh,
reading something the other day, and it said that a golden retriever in America, I think it said in the 50s, lived until it was 21. Now the average lifespan is 9, because they're being fed on grains constantly. So basically, you can see in that's a mirror of humans,
yes.
right?
Excellent
They've changed the
illustration.
diet,
Yep.
and how often have we talked about our lives have been? Oh, you're still there. How long have we talked about our lifespan being reduced and our size being reduced? This could be the reason for both.
Yeah, I mean, like even back in the Bible, like, people were living for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But today, if you get to 80 without a disease, like, I mean, we live in a realm now that, like, if you get to 80 and you haven't had cancer or you haven't had some fucking disease to deal with, like, you consider yourself friggin' lucky. Because at this point, it's just luck. Like, everything is working to give you sickness. Everything is working towards sickness. Like, the entire concept of food and eating and drinking, and it's all like pushing you to a point of a disease, to the point where if we get to 80, we think, well, we've had a good life. If we get to 80 and we haven't suffered cancer, we're like, wow, we're one of the lucky few, you know? Whereas, like,
Yeah.
on this diet,
Oh, it's
like,
so bad. We've got old people's homes
old people's
because we know
homes.
that when they hit that age, they're so decrepit, they need to be
Yeah.
looked after.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And all
looking
Alzheimer's.
into the history. Yeah. Alzheimer's. What happened to wise men, wise people, right? The elders. Now they've all, they can't do anything,
That's
right? They've
right.
got no mental faculties left because why, and then, again, like go and look at a tribal person or, someone living much closer to the land with a different diet and see how old they live, like this
Yep.
is the main thing, right? It's results, the results we're getting. And, I know we're going to be triggering lots of people, but, what we want to say is just
He's about to say, just look into it. Yep.
look into it. Yeah, man. Do your research and have a think. Have a think about, could this be a scam? Or how healthy are you? How do you feel? Because everything that we become is what we take into our body, be that food or thoughts, right? But
Mm-hmm.
really the physical, if you're having physical problems, it's what you're physically taking in,
Yep.
right? So check it out. Also Jordan Peterson, yes, his daughter, Michaela Peterson, she had everything, right? She had massive mental issues. I think she got her hips replaced when she was 17 or something because she had such joint problems. Now she's on carnivore. I think she's been on it for like 10 years or more, and no problems at all, healthy as, doing really well. So, if you do, like Kelly mentioned before, if you do have any issues, check out some videos.
We've all got issues.
We've all
We've
got
all
issues.
got issues, man. You can't escape that.
Yeah,
And you know
yeah.
what's interesting, Campbell? Like, all this sort of back in the day of the beginning of disclosure, the last COVID, I should say, the last couple of years, how many of those like personalities online, those guru personalities, like ended up like really, really pushing veganism and pushing vegetarian, like Santos and Charlie Freak and a whole pile of YouTubers that were really like tied up in sort of this like white hat movement. Man, did they push the vegetarian vegan diet. And
And
like, to be fair, energetically, they've all kind of like gone off the rails a lot, and a lot of like aggression and a
yeah,
lot
well,
of
that's the main thing is when they're telling you that you've got to be vegan or whatever, they're so aggressive about it.
yeah,
There's,
yeah,
but they claim to be all love and light, but there's not much love and light coming out of them. So, yeah, all these people telling us how to live and what we can and can't do, and kids should chop bits off them, and that again, they're predominantly vegan or vegetarian, and they're clearly mentally ill.
yep,
They're physically weak.
yep,
They have no ethical fiber to them. Like they're
hmm,
not good humans. They're a
yep.
devolution. Like and that's what we know. We talk about this all the time. That's what the deep state want. Right? They want to dumb us down, weak us down, destroy us, all this stuff. Well, have a look. So
And
we can
also,
choose a big
Campbell,
agenda. Mm.
on the flip side of that, all of the 5D community, all of that sort of esoteric community, which, by the way, this is no judgment, it's just an observation, because a lot of those beings are, close friends of mine. Um, they're very what would I say, ungrounded, and very airy fairy, very, their physical and mental natures are sort of like la 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 la, like, just look at the, like, stay on the positive, and just, it's just very, it's very fairy-ish, like ethereal, like it gives them like a very
Yeah,
angelic ethereal quality. But oh my God,
not grounded.
like,
Yeah,
no judgment, observation only. Like, they're not very good at doing anything physically.
yeah.
Like, physically, they really struggle to physically, engage reality, to do any sort of physical work or labor out in the world, to interact with the strength of what it means to have one of these bodies of ours. And like back in the day, you'd build your own home, you'd find your family, you'd build a home, you'd make sure you got your land, and you've got your farming going on, or you're very crafty, and like, there was a lot more energetic around using the physical structure of your body. Now,
Yeah.
it's interesting with the ascension 5Ders and the ascension diet, it does make you really yin. It's a really yin diet, right? And it makes you very lofty and ungrounded, which has its role, definitely. And a lot of healers, benefit from working in that space. But I tell you what, I'm really certain that the closest version I have to sort of, and I'm just using this as a term, an ascension diet now, is carnivore, being outside with your shoes off, getting a massive hit of sunlight naturally, and breathing in the free and fresh air that you get from being outside in nature.
Mm.
So, like, it's such an excellent paradigm shift. I'm really excited to like introduce this to our audience, because fuck, guys, like, if you are suffering from anything, which you all are, then I really recommend you have a look at the carnivore diet, watch some YouTubes on it. There's heaps of people podcasting about it, heaps of people who've been through it. And I can tell you what, and this makes total sense, everyone we're watching on the podcast, they look fucking 20, 30 years younger than they are. Like, it literally reduces the aging process, because you're putting all the collagen and fats and nutrients back into your skin, back into your cells. It's rejuvenating and filling out your cells again. And as a
Mm.
result, like, you're reducing and then like changing the aging process. So, Like we've watched some amazing ones of 80-year-olds, Campbell, that look like they're 50.
Yeah. Yep. And collagen is something that heaps of people are pushing at the moment, right? They're selling it when
Yep.
it's free in fat. So,
Hmm.
and of course, to top it off, cow farts are going to explode the planet, everyone. So now we have to get rid of cows. I mean,
And isn't that interesting that they really homed in on cows when it came to climate change and carbon emission?
yeah,
Like the best food for the human race, according to our now experience and diet, is is steak,
cow.
is the meat and the bone broth that you can get, and the organ meat and the marrow from a cow. That is the best source of food for a human being at this point of our understanding. And it's the cow that they have completely annihilated as the blaming pigeon child of climate change. And
Yeah.
interestingly, then you go to other countries and it's the cow that's sacred and they
I
can't
was
eat
going to
them
say
whatsoever. Yeah,
India, the biggest vegetarian country in the world, and yeah, cows are sacred. You can't touch them.
yeah.
Right?
Now
So
it's,
was that different before, the English got there, right?
and isn't it interesting that I'm going to India in a couple of weeks and I'm going to be filming our podcast from India. Fucking excellent.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
the whole culture, however, bores me to death on the level that it's just full of dogma and superstition and religion and rules and tyranny, all that stuff. But it's so interesting to me. The buildings, of course, will be fascinating. That the culture of India is so brutally caught up in mind games when it comes to religions and gods and gurus and caste systems, which are horrific, like horrific. But the population, the people, they're so little and skinny and wiry, and their energetic for standing up to tyranny is almost zero. Like they will roll over to any dude walks out and says, "I'm the new guru, the new god," and he'll get like a cult following instantly. Like India as a culture, they are pushovers when it comes to individual sovereignty. Same with China. Same with, like, there's so many cultures around the world that just don't have the physical and mental strength to override hundreds of years of bullshit. And it's
Mm.
just interesting that the cow is off the table
And
completely.
it's
Same
interesting
in
that
Tibet.
there's so much poverty in India, and not a lot of building going on at the moment, right? All their
Mm.
buildings are old, so there's not much progressing as far as their civilization, and they're the biggest vegetarian country in the world. I mean, is there a link? We're just saying it. I mean, there's observations, right? And so, yeah, guys, like, you go and check it out. Let us know what you think about this. If you just put carnivore diet into YouTube or Rumble or whatever, there's lots of content on there. Check out these people, and a lot of doctors and neuroscientists and stuff coming out. So it's not just people, saying stuff, but also results. Weights are the biggest ones. People losing hundreds of pounds, over sort of 9, 12 months. Ridiculous. And also when they lose weight, they don't get the big fat rolls. When people go on diets and lose a lot, they get saggy
Yep.
skin.
Yep.
This way they don't. And I think it's because what's happening is the fat is being eaten, used as energy. That's why they're shrinking, and so the skin's shrinking with it, because it's this gradual thing where if you're on all these calories and you just cut them out and you're not replacing it with what your body needs, then you're going to, basically starting to starve. Your body's like eating all the reserves of everything but the fat, because you're still taking sugar in
Yep.
and it hasn't started yet. So it's very interesting. It seems to help the body work.
Yeah. I mean, we really don't have many examples of cultures or countries today that really have this sort of carnivore diet as a predominant diet of their culture. Like it's definitely now blended into all sorts of, plant, nut, grain, substitutes, animals being off the table altogether. Like I was just saying, Campbell, there's not many countries around the world now culturally that have anywhere near a carnivore diet as their main diet, right? It's just not, we just don't have that. In the West, we have, mainly diets of processed food.
Yeah,
And then in the sort of third world nations, it's vegetarianism. And then they've
grain
got all the
crops.
sacred animals that are off the cards. But then if you go into the colder climates, like the Eskimo sort of climates, they definitely draw on fat. Fat is a major part of their diet. Absolutely.
Definitely,
They get it not from
100%.
cows.
No, yeah, yeah, and they can't grow, and all these northern regions can't grow plants, right?
Mm.
But we have all these big like Vikings, right? If we picture a Viking, what are they? Are they small and skinny? No, they're big, strong, broad people, right? Um,
Yes.
and complete
Russians.
carnivores, right? Russians, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so
So
the cold climates, places where they suddenly it freezes over for 6 months of the year and they can't access,
they can't grow, yeah.
grown foods. They rely on meat stores, and it's true. Those cultures are big, strong, broad,
Yeah,
and you also like the teeth issue. In the West, our
indeed.
teeth are fucked up, man. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
annoying.
mean, that's one of the reasons. I mean, that we decided, apart from the fact that it's just a complete flip, something, completely to mess with the universe. I was having teeth issues. One of my teeth broke and fell out.
Same.
Like,
Hmm.
hello. My eyesight, obviously I've been wearing glasses, and obviously my arm, I wanted to start putting on weight, and this is one thing I was looking at is there's not you don't have all the stuff to regrow all your cartilage and all your
No.
kind of stuff on plant foods. It's just not there. And I mean, as far as that the whole we shouldn't kill animals. Well, I mean, look at the forestry destruction that goes on. Trees are pretty important too, right? Like we've talked a lot about trees and giant trees and their connections and their antennas and the mycelium and all this stuff. But back in the 70s, people were saying don't cut the trees. And
Yep. Yep. Oh, all right. I'll speak. Yes, the trees are an interesting one. I watched an excellent YouTube conceptualizing the trees. It took me in a little slightly different direction. Sorry, go on, Campbell.
yes, yeah. So yeah, I was just saying you don't see a lot of outrage about the trees anymore. It's all about animals. And as a side note, we're still very against factory farming and all this.
Yeah, obviously. Goes to that saying. Factory farming's bullshit. It's part of industrial enslavement. As long as we have factory farms, we are enslaved as a race. That's just a fact. But interesting that what they feed the animals are predominantly grains.
Yes,
So they feed animal grains as their food source. They feed us plants as our food source, and we are their food source. And like it's not even our meat that's the food source for the nefarious ones. It's our energetic. It's our energy is the food source, and of course all the other shitty stuff
yeah,
they do
yeah.
with the kids. Yeah,
I mean, it seems to have a link, at least some correlation with mental illness. That's what they want, right?
massive
That makes them easier for them
correlation.
to get into. So, but yeah, if you're going to do this, like it's grass fed, like ethical, get meat from farmers, not from factories. Because as Kelly keeps pointing out, all the if they're being fed grass or grain that's been sprayed, all those chemicals go straight.
Yeah, it goes
Right,
straight to the fat.
go straight to the fat, yeah.
So you've got
So
to, you've got to
yeah,
have organic diet. You've got
got to
to have
be
an organic meat-based
grass-fed
diet
organic.
to the
Yeah.
best of your ability, or farmers markets diet, because
Mm,
otherwise you're going to be consuming a hit of the agricultural poisons when you eat the fat.
exactly, and
So
it's the most ethical, of course. These are the cows that are loved and raised well. They have good lives. They're not shoved into trucks and all this kind of gross stuff. And in the end, that's it, right? All the food that we're given, it's all processed, and they've even got even this factory farming meat you could call processed now because it's full of
yeah,
they're doing whatever they can to get more things in there that are bad for us. So yeah, what do you think, guys? I don't know if anyone else has heard about it. Let us know if you've been on this diet, what your results were. But yeah,
well,
check it out. Let us know what you think.
I have to say I did so for those who don't know, I work with a woman called Maggie Palmer. She was on JC's live chat last night. She's an excellent energy worker, and we've been doing some cord cutting and some various things and higher self communication, which of course I love. Like, hello, if you're gonna like seek counseling on any single topic, seek it with your higher self, whatever that is. I don't know if my higher self's a clone. I don't know if it's clone A. I don't know if it's, the energetics version of me. I don't know exactly what the higher self is. But I can tell you what, when you're in the communication with it, it feels nothing but like joy, love, humorous, lighthearted. Like you can feel the energy of your higher self. And you do these amazing readings where you sit down and you can basically ask any question you want, big or small, about any topic, and ask it to your higher self. So she goes through this whole process with you. It's fucking fantastic. It's way too cheap. She's got it way too cheap right now. But if you guys want to go and have an experience with an amazing energy worker, we're going to leave her details down below, and I thoroughly recommend. But my point is that she herself is on the carnivore diet, and I only found this out the last session, which was on Friday, when I told her we'd made a shift over, and she was like, fucking excellent. Like that is essentially the light diet. That is your light quotient diet. That is the protocol I've been working with my clients that I'm being counseled in. And I was like, oh my God, this is a pivotal moment. I've actually sought out and working with a healer energy worker who's one of the most powerful I've ever worked with. And she's on the carnivore diet, and like normally, a year ago, that would have been unthinkable.
Yeah.
Working in this realm, unthinkable.
But I mean, also over the last, 2 years, 3 years, so many of those people just fell, right? They just folded and took the shot and closed their shops and all this kind of stuff, like schools as well, like, Stein, all these things, right? All these, so they're not very strong minded, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess, in summary of this show, we start with the idea of being scanned and scammed. And, could it be that the superfood industry is literally the biggest scam of our lifetime? Could it be that?
Yep. Because the more you get into it, the more, what's in the food is getting more concentrated.
Yes,
right? So literally, the more super the food, the more oxalate.
Yes, and that brings me back to a good point, because obviously you guys know I work with regenerative agriculture and the organics market, and I tell you what, if this theory is correct, then the whole push for regenerative agriculture, which is essentially to heal the soil, but to create high nutritional food, is basically accumulating in fantastic superfood that's the most poisonous that you can create. So how's that for a head flip? Organic, fantastic, because it means it's chemical free. But when you start to look at getting in the best nutrient density possible, which is my whole work, by the way, then but essentially that means that the oxalates are thriving and as strong as they can be. So superfood essentially could be even more dramatically poisonous to us and cause even more dramatic health issues than anything. I mean, it's such a fucking paradigm shift. It's a head flip. And I tell you what, guys, this is a lifestyle choice you make. It basically stops all food cravings. You don't have food cravings. It's like you don't feel hungry. You're eating very simply. It's, you end up craving the steak, and it takes a bit of time to sort of have your body transition from, feeding off the carbs and the sugars to feeding off the fats and the meat. And then once that transition happens in your system, the whole process around food just becomes a totally different kettle of fish. Seriously simple.
It just becomes so less important in your life, doesn't it? Like food's not a thing. It's not a thing. So you've got more life, I guess, as well, right?
Yeah,
I said
it's
I
not a
haven't
thing.
eaten lunch for 3 weeks. I have a late breakfast and dinner, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and nothing else. None of this crappy processed food and people say, oh my God, it's so expensive. It's so expensive, but mate, well, not if you're not buying all the other crap. It's about the same. Probably cheaper. And you're only having 2 meals a day, right? You're not having 3 meals plus snacks. So yeah, it's an interesting. It's a mind flip, that's for sure. So
yeah. So there you go. So accidentally we've stumbled across this concept. It makes a lot of sense to looking at Tartaria and the food chain and the bathroom situation. It's something that we want to talk to you guys about because if this is an accurate truth, which I feel so far it is, then you guys want to seriously consider doing some research on yourselves and like taking back your fucking health and reversing your aging and getting those fucking physical bodies to their optimum level without any effort. Lose that weight, turn it into muscle. You're not doing anything particularly. You're not having to fast, do any more exercise, have any regime, try any weird diets. You're just like, it's a natural product of actually eating the truth. Eating the truth. And one thing I will say is that I have, because of my like issue with eating animals, every master I've ever stood in front, I've asked the question, how is it that God has plagued us with the idea of our food chain being such beautiful, such intelligent and emotional creatures? Like, how is that? And the best answer I ever got after years and years and years was that animals exist in a dream-like consciousness. Like, their experience of reality is similar to our experience when we're dreaming. Like, it is occurring. It's not physically as solidified as what we experience. They haven't named and labeled everything on that level. It's very fluent. Just like when we dream, it's very fluent. It doesn't have this big emotional container around it. And just like in dreams, you can have really emotional dreams where you make a really emotional connection in the dream, but it's fluent. Like, and then suddenly you're on to the next scene, and there's no real sticking to a topic and building a life off it. You know what I mean? Like, and so the best answer I ever got is, this is what it's like for animals on this realm. It's dreamy, it's dreamlike. It's fluent and flowy. Their experience down here is they're not scared of death or life. They're existing very naturally, very fluently, and with a lot of flow in their experience. So a lot of our issues with eating animals is our own it's our narrative about it. It's our storytelling about that. It's like, it's like killing a cute little baby. It's like a narrative around that topic. But their expression and their experience here on the realm is, akin to us being asleep in dreams. So, and I like that explanation. It resonated as true for me. Like, I can get an emotional connection with animals. At the same time, I leave them to their life and their everyday, and they potter around and eat and sleep and just go through this lifetime experience. So I don't know, I just wanted to add that at the end. Like, that's helped me understand the relationship between food and death and life and us. So yeah.
So there you go. And we often talk about, especially recently, death might be a good thing, right? Getting out of here, getting out of the construct, but it's definitely not a bad thing for animals. It's not the end, right? Death isn't the end, and it's not necessarily bad. So if we put that thinking to animals as well, then, and like I said, we've been taken apart from this circle of life and death, birth and regrowth. Like, we've been separated, but that's really all there is down here. Yeah, that's all there is, really, when you think about it. They also separate us spiritually, right? Like, some are not grounded, like airy fairy people. There's a saying, some people are so heavenly.
Oh, he paused, and so heavenly. What a nice way to end, Cambell. Oh, so heavenly. There, you paused on so heavenly. Oh, man. All right, people, we apologize for this satellite issue. At least he's not in a tent anymore, okay? At least he's out of the fucking tent.
There we are.
We're back.
All right. Some people are so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. So, we've got to be grounded. We're here, we're physical. I said it before, we're here for a physical experience. Later is the spiritual stuff. Here is clearly we're in a physical body. So, guys, let us know what you think. Good or bad. If you're a vegan, let us know. If you're not, let us know. Let us know your experiences. What do you think?
Yep. Excellent, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, our little sojourn through our real life experience here. I like the fact that our backgrounds are natural too. I feel like Cambell and I are just, presenting you with like a little bit of a diary on our lives here at the farm. Yes.
We have been recording some of it, guys, so we will get some videos out showing you what we're building.
Yeah.
We may be doing a variety show. I don't know.
Mate. Are we? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We just got to get our systems like going through this transition with the diet, and getting you in a house. That's big tick off the list.
Yeah, that's a big So a
We're
bit
like, we
more
got to get
calm
him out
down.
of the tent before winter comes. So he made it before summer.
Made it 2 weeks before spring. Woo!
All right, guys. We hope you have an amazing week. We love you. It's been fun. We haven't been on for a while, but who knows? Like maybe with our new high flying focus and clarity, we'll be able to get back to our regular once a week shows. But if we don't have anything awesome to share with you, then no point hearing us gabbering about, correct? All right, guys. Campbell's Frozen, you have the best week ever, and we will see you soon enough on Tartaria, Australia. Bye, everyone. Should we wait? Should we wait? Come on, Campbell. Do it. He's gone. He's
Oh my
poised in.
God.
Oh, quick, say goodbye.
Okay, goodbye. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye. And the other thing we can put next to that is
Ooh, cliffhanger.
pretty sure they would have known that, you know, gluttony and also eating the wrong.
Ooh, I don't want to interrupt him. Everyone take a moment to digest this excellent thought.
We're part of the cycle. I believe we're from this realm.
Ooh, do I interrupt him or is he going to come back in 1 second?
Our lives have been. Oh, you're still there. You know what we want to say is just looking.
Yeah, absolutely. He's about to say, just look into it. Yeah.
Just look into it, yeah, man. I'm gonna have to edit this. Getting out of here, getting out of the construct. But also the talk that it.
Oh, his grand conclusion. Paused. Paused. Come on, Campbell. Do it. He's gone. Yeah, he's. All right, yeah. So it's a really, really interesting. Hello, we missed all of that. All I can do is keep speaking when you
Keep
pause.
speaking. I know, right? It's Elon Musk, man. He's out to get us.